Hello, everybody, and welcome to Clutch or Kick episode 5, the podcast series where we try to keep up on the Valorant content and tournaments alongside our normal day jobs, but still come across as misinformed. So welcome to the episode. We've got Mitch with us today.
Misinformed?
We got Mitch joining us today for this one. It's going to be a good one, actually. We got a lot to talk about because we left a week out in the middle just so that we could build up a nice little content repertoire to really chat about. So let's get started, I think, talking about the patch notes. 1.03 was the patch. They added, I believe...
Was anyone else confused, by the way? Was anyone else confused by the fact that the patch was announced before it actually went live? Like, they posted the patch, and then I was in the game, and the Guardian was still 2,700.
Yeah, this
I
is...
was like, what? What's going on?
That's a League of Legends thing.
Is it?
Like, they don't have a PTR, remember? So it's not like they can, debut the patch on the PTR and then put it into the game. So I guess their, rollout's a bit different. But I'm pretty sure, like in LoL, they just patch the game, and all of a sudden... But there's a PTR for that as well, so...
I'll be honest. Yeah. I think Overwatch is the outlier where they just patch a game and they release the patch and then release the notes.
Is it? Is that an outlier?
Path of Exile releases the patch notes in advance. League of Legends does. Dota does.
So that I can theory craft about the Guardian being 2,500 and add up the economy.
The weirdest thing is that there's no date in the patch notes. Like, if you're going to announce it in beforehand, why not put a date? Like, these are the notes that will go live on Wednesday or whatever. But there's nothing in it.
Development cycles.
There is a PBE for League of Legends. We just never used it because all we did was jump into bronze games and feed our asses off. But there is
true.
Yeah.
I think the development cycles can sometimes be iffy. Like, if they find a game-breaking bug, they don't want to release the patch. You know what I mean? But I can kind of understand the concept of releasing the patch notes because you want to generate hype, I guess. Like, you letting people know that this is what's gonna be the game, and people can create content around it. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, how long does it take for after a game's release for there to be a PTR for that game? You know what I mean? Like, maybe there is one for Valorant eventually, but they're just not released to public because the resources are taxed. I mean, I read just earlier on that the person at Riot who's responsible for the rank system is no longer at the company.
Really?
So no one quote unquote owns the rank system right now. So,
Wait, what?
Yeah.
Who was on it previously?
I think Morello said that. I'm not sure.
They don't know, but apparently it was hired on a contractual basis. Here's the thing. I think the internet may have also just ran away with this. I think Morello was just like, the lead developer for Ranked left us, so we're just rethinking how we want to go forward with Ranked.
He didn't say left us. That's the thing. He said no longer with the company, but he used that rule like game dev terminology of like, no one here at Riot currently owns the rank system, implying that I guess they don't have a point of contact that's like responsible for it.
So and that's just him saying, I guess that's just him giving like reasoning why things might be a bit slower, right? Like, is that the point that he was trying to get across?
It was. I think it was definitely in response to like people's feedback about the state of rank right now. So obviously there are a lot of people that want like rank solo queue only and duo and all that sort of stuff. So if you look at Mendo's Twitter feed, like I mean, it's a laundry list of complaints about rank right now, and there's plenty of others like that.
Even in spite of that, I mean, this rank system is not as good as others, dare I say.
That's a bit spicy, Johnny. Jeez. I mean,
I'll walk away and pick up my food and let you discuss further.
So let's take a look at these patch notes because I can't even remember what's happened. So they kind of buffed and nerfed the Guardian at the same time. I would consider this a buff based on the fact that they've lowered the cost of it. They increased the penetration. It's now a more reasonable alternative if you're on those weird rounds where you can't really buy a rifle.
Do you think it is though? Because I don't think it is at all. Like, I can't think of any time where I personally would rather buy the Guardian instead of the Bulldog. I know that they're trying to find a niche for it. But
I like it.
Unless you're playing like a Sova and you're trying to wallbang people with the recon arrows, like when the hell are you going to buy this weapon?
I like it.
It's rewarding for first shot, like tap players as well. I mean, we're going to talk about Scream later on, but people that play like him, it is rewarding, but they kind of hedge it as like a long range option. Like, what's the longest ranges in Valorant? Like C long on Haven? I guess it outperforms the Bulldog at that range.
Does it though? Like, does it actually? Because I would rather have a Bulldog there because the ADS on the Bulldog is kind of nasty at long range, and it's still cheaper and it's more versatile.
That thing kicks like a mule who's had a bunch of magic mushrooms. Right? Like, you have to ADS with it. You can't. I guess you can't be as fast with it. But look, I don't think is it ever bad to try and put a gun in like its own its own category, or like to make it more specific. Otherwise, it's like, well, do you want this gun which has one-shot headshots? This gun doesn't, but less spread. This one is you just tap it, and So I like that they up the penetration here, but I mean, you could say the same for like LMGs in this game.
I could see.
You guys are being way too negative. No, you're being way too negative. Bren,
go on then.
You have an opinion on that?
Well, I was going to say I can see some usage for it just on the basis of like certain maps that are more long range. Haven C, Haven A. You're holding long. You want to get that angle. You're holding like a corner, an angle like that. You just want to hold it down and fire, especially because I can definitely see a scenario where you're holding long A on Haven, and there's an angle where they can sort of half peek behind a wooden post. I'm talking you're holding from the defender side, on the long, right, on the corner, and there's this wooden post that they can half peek and still get the better of you if they've got an op, but the higher penetration might be the difference maker if you can hit the headshot or whatever. And it's like there's certain niche scenarios where I could actually seeing it being used. Do I still think it's going to be used? Well, probably not, because the tournaments that I watched last night at 2 o'clock in the morning, people only picked it when they were on eco rounds, when they were forced to.
Yeah.
Well, people are learning how to use it as well. I really like the Guardian. Really, I shouldn't say that, because on most maps I would buy a Vandal or a Phantom. Yeah. But I actually do think that it has a viable use case, specifically on Ascent. I think this gun is good on Ascent when you're trying to take control of mid. This is an aim style also that like I enjoy. Like I actively enjoy using a Guardian compared to say a Guardian. Because I just think
compared to a Guardian. You said you'd rather use a Guardian compared to a Guardian.
What the fuck? Oh my god! I just did a 3-hour podcast, so my head is boomed. Guardian over.
All right, Bulldog. King, come on.
Phantom.
Yes, Bulldog.
Right.
I was gonna say Bullpop, but that's a Counter-Strike gun. I think.
I honestly mauled at just how much kick that the Bulldog has, but then sometimes I randomly rip people's heads off with it when my aim I didn't feel like I was on it all. You know what? Okay, so the Guardian feels more like, this is a crazy comparison to make, right? But kind of like the hunting rifle from Fortnite. Like it has potential. Like it's like an off sniper almost. It doesn't actually have a scope on it, kind of thing.
You're talking to a man that could knock rank a 90 if his life depended on it. So I have no idea what you're talking about.
Well, I mean, Bren's a zoomer. He gets it.
Yeah,
maybe there's more ADS potential with this gun now. I don't know.
But the trouble is, because opping is super powerful in the game, right? We're talking about just in general, not even at the pro level. And that's the kind of niche where it would fill, which is like kind of like this middle ground between they can't really afford an op yet, but there's no scenario where you would buy that because you're trying to save up for the op. Like oppers, when they're saving up for it, they often buy like a ghost, and that's it, and that's all they're going with, because they're
Judge now as well.
What's that?
Oh my god!
So what's a reasonable price then for you guys?
I think this is reasonable. I actually quite like the price point that it's at now. I just think that I think that the long range aspect of it is massively overstated because the fire rate is so low. If you're taking a long range battle, even against someone that has a Vandal, if you miss that first shot, you're just gonna die because you've like peaked a really long angle. So I think most of the time the niche uses will be because of the high penetration. I think that's going to be like the majority part of it because it's the only rifle that has high pen. Sure. Unless you want to buy an op, you're limited to the Guardian. So if you want some kind of niche strat that relies on wall banging, then pick it up.
Actually, though, I mean, we've seen teams running. It's actually so common now. Actually, in fact, I think every team runs a Sova on a Scent B site. And then they just send in their utility so that they can see through the wall, and they often put an Odin or an Ares or something on their Sova. There's a world in which they might just pick up the Guardian.
Yes, I'm buying stock. Okay, I'm investing like in solo here. I'm investing in Guardian. We're gonna come back to Clutch or Kick. We'll see Corey bring it out for FaZe. It's gonna be a good time. So
whatever
Corey's
changes,
the kind of guy that would slap with the Guardian. Like that guy's aim so crisp on heads.
Like Scream, we'll talk about him later, but Scream was literally criticized for going for one taps in CS:GO when he wasn't supposed to, and like there was. People were like, "Listen, Scream, this seriously limits your potential as a player." He's like, "I know, I just want to go for the one taps. I can't help it." I mean, like those kind of players that want to use those weapons could be kind of sick. I mean, if you could do it a little bit cheaper than with the Vandal, I guess.
Yeah.
Well, you can even go for like 2 taps. It's not even 1 tap anymore. You can go for 2 taps because the recoil pattern on the Guardian is actually pretty favorable. Where it's like, if you just spam 1 shots, obviously it's gonna go to the roof. But you can get 2 shots in before the recoil really kicks in, And if you don't kill anyone by your third shot, you're probably dead.
Well, it's also the rate of fire has been reduced, so I assume that helps with spread as well.
Yeah, maybe. I just
I'm not
played
sure,
around with it in
actually.
practice range, and just consistently, you can actually do a lot of damage. So I'm for the Guardian. I think
we'll see. We'll find out in pro play pretty soon, I imagine. If people
I'll tell you
pick
fucking
up.
what though. I'll tell you what. If I see one more gold player in my games buying the Guardian and spamming it as fast as they can instead of trying to get good with a Phantom or a Vandal, I will start surrendering immediately.
I can't help it. My butt clenches up when I see someone, and I just start smashing the mouse around if I got a Guardian. You know what I mean? I just like draw an outline of them.
Maybe you shouldn't be in gold anymore, Sideshow.
Fucking hell. I'm not, but I keep getting put with them, and they make me want to murder myself.
Hey, did you see they changed now the silhouettes of agents for observers? They actually, we can see outlines now, and not just little points of light.
I think that's in
nice.
the rest of these patch notes, but I don't know what else is in them.
Yeah, well, there's a couple interesting like observer side changes as well. Like I think observers can now be assigned moderator roles inside lobbies, so now they can actually toggle the timer, and I think they can actually pause the game. We have like a convoluted pause system now.
Oh, here we go. Yeah, so the X-ray and a bunch of other stuff. There's still a bunch of spectator bugs. I don't know if they've been fixing them actually. They may have just been hot fixing them. But
what was the name of the guy that kept popping up in the tournaments? Did you see every pistol round? They would say that they all had a Phantom, and there was someone called like Sean was going around the map.
Yeah.
Was it Schwame or something?
Yeah,
I can't remember the
five
name.
letters. Start with S.
one of the devs, it was like a
Sean, I don't know.
a holdover from the development days of when they were just using them as a placeholder name model, whatever.
Well, there's also the scoreboard was only showing one person from each team at times as well.
Yeah,
I will say,
you never see their lineup.
The X-rays have made a big difference for just spectating as well. The past couple of days, we've just been watching the Valorant tournaments late at night, and just sat around watching them. Whereas previously, it's like it was a chore. It felt like to watch the pro play because of how difficult it was to watch. It's still not perfect. It's still not quite there. But
I vastly prefer the CS:GO system where you have outlines and it fills in with the damage that's done instead of just being like a full, like full silhouette. I think the full silhouettes look still a bit janky.
Yeah.
But that's the kind of thing that I'm hoping. Jesus Christ, I nearly threw up this fucking tea. Good Christ.
Do you drink tea?
No, not often.
Yeah, I don't. But, you've never been a tea person.
But you never
well, this isn't tea,
either, right?
This is apple and cranberry, like basically flavored water, because it's not actually tea, is it? So it's
like one of them like herbal infusions. Teas. Yeah. It's already tea.
Well, that's phenomenal.
You don't drink coffee either, Josh, do you?
No.
You're not a hot beverage kind of guy.
No caffeine, no hot beverage. No.
That's kind of weird. Your brain must be like, I don't know, underdeveloped or something.
Jesus.
I think that's us caffeine heads just trying to justify. I mean, I remember when Johnny went off caffeine. There was like this whole like Zen master thing. He went off caffeine for a while, and I remember it boomed him.
Oh my god, I died.
He went to the monastery in Tibet and just swore off caffeine for ages.
Oh my god.
I
would enter another dimension. I'm convinced that like if you don't use caffeine, like you're actually just a monk. You just surrender to
You're a monk.
That's right, Josh.
The way
Get an
that you
arrow
say
on your forehead to complete the look, bro.
Johnny doesn't say monk. He says monk.
Monk.
Oh, yeah. No, okay, you're gonna make fun of accent again. Yeah, pronunciation. How often do I say monk, huh? Why don't you just spell it with a U
Not
instead?
often enough, Johnny. I need to hear more of this, bro.
That's so good.
What the hell else happened in this patch? The overtime rules. That's another huge one.
Did you see the game that went 18-16 in the qualifiers in Europe?
So there was some tournaments didn't use the overtime rules, and I asked why, and they said it's bugged. So did they fix it, or was that tournament organizer just lying?
No, that tournament was the Vitality tournament where they realized that it was bugged. I don't know what the bug was though, but the American tournaments that ran later on in the day took off the overtime rules because there was some kind of bug with it. I don't know what the bug was.
Yeah, I mean, look, let's be fair. I remember I cast a CS match between Heroic and Envious that went like 28-26 or something like that. Jesus. And that's in CS's overtime rules where you don't get all your money reset every round, right? Which you would think that like that would be more conducive to one team getting a bigger advantage. But this overtime system is kind of weird, right? Because unlike in normal time, what you did in one round doesn't actually have any bearing at all on the next one. Like you cannot create any consequences of like decisions you make in terms of economy. at all. They just don't matter.
It just
so it's
resets,
just like,
yeah.
And then and like you get to swap sides a bunch. So at least unlike last time, it was like you're on offense, well you're stuck on offense, and you have to play this last round. So I guess it's better.
Yeah, that definitely sucked. I mean, this is a better alternative, I think, to what it is. It's an interesting system that they've got in ranked where the voting takes place. Have you seen this? Where a certain amount of players are needed to decide if it ends in a draw. Oh,
basically,
bless
the
me.
more
Oh my
rounds
God.
go, the more rounds that happen, the less votes that are required from a team to cause a surrender. So what is it, after like 5 rounds, only one person has to vote to draw. So to draw, you can vote to draw.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that is
something
fair.
like that.
Because when you sign up to play ranked, I mean you're trying to schedule your next hour. Like I am scheduling for the next hour that I will be in this Valorant game. But if it goes on for 2 hours, I mean that's absurd.
I think that's
Like,
that's reasonable. But the amount of players I've played to, with papers that are the equivalent of papers, mentals that are the equivalent of paper, has been. Yeah, I mean I'm knackered as well. I'm a little bit concerned that these matches are just going to end up in a draw. I want to go for the win every time.
Yeah.
And I feel like...
But you can't
hate that
force
realistic.
your team. You can't force the rest of your players to like play forever and ever. And, you know, one of them's like 14 years old and his mum's screaming at him to go to bed. And Brenn's like, you fucking weak mental little bitch. You will play for the win.
You have a responsibility to me, someone you've never met, to stay in my game so I can gain elo, bro. All right, so... Okay, this is okay to me because they've also stipulated if you draw, you won't lose rating. You might even gain some. So if you, that's fine. The fact that there's a possibility that you might gain some softens the blow.
Nope.
Oh, hello.
It softens the blow a little bit, you know what I mean? Like, but it's tough, right? If you're like 4 of you and 1 random player, right? Let's say it happens like you guys are like giga grinding, you're up late, you know, you're getting it done, and one guy decides doesn't want to play the game and he can end it. I don't know. I'd like to see some use cases of this, you know, some case studies and see how people actually feel. It's interesting.
I like it. I think it's good as is. And it feels rewarding now when you win in overtime as well, as I'm trying to distract everyone from watching Mitch.
I'm watching Mitch just put his
What's
mic back
happened
together.
to it?
I don't know. I don't understand how it could fall off, honestly. But now, I mean, if you got the wire in, you can't screw it back on. So how is it unscrewed? Like, surely the wire would get tangled if it was slowly unscrewing itself. I don't know.
I used to have this problem a lot with my
Listen,
mic.
can you just leave it up to the engineer and get on with the podcast, bro? Look, it fixed. No, never mind.
Oh my God.
It screws on. It screws on. You know. I'll get there.
Oh wow. Okay.
I'm getting hazed.
Aerospace engineer struggles to screw.
Far out, dude.
The next segment, I kind of want to bring Wyatt in because I have never seen a man so passionate in my life to talk about this bloody dragon skin that they've released.
God,
We had this last week to fill Mitch in. Last week, we discussed at length Valorant skins.
Didn't we talk about
whether they are good or bad?
I think we want to talk about the surrender systems, but we talked about the surrender. Oh, they adjusted it, didn't they? So they made it so that what? They just fixed it, is what they did, right?
But
they made it so that you can now surrender if you have only 4 players in the server.
Yeah, but have you seen that they have also they changed it for unrated too? And I sent Kurt a tweet from Tyrone because the Overwatch people that watch the show will remember.
Great tweets, by the way. Incredible tweets from Tyrone.
Unbelievable tweeter. The guy that used to sleep underneath the Houston Outlaws tables to try and coach them into being a...
It's on the level of like Min-Soo Kim's tweets, right? Like right there. This is incredible.
And apparently he's run into, presumably multiple times, this situation where unrated people are just surrendering games in order to rank up faster, in order to actually get more XP from their games, just surrendering, and then presumably the entire game counts as finished, so you can just bash through the games really quick. Yeah, which seems like unfortunate use case.
Play 4 rounds and then that's it. Like you can
5.
surrender.
I think you can. Oh yeah, 5? Yeah, you can surrender on the 5th.
So I mean, damn, they really should have actually considered this, I think, as well, because people were abusing Spike Rush when it came out for easy wins. Because each Spike Rush game was 4,000 XP for the Battle Pass, which is like the most efficient XP you can get in terms of your Battle Pass. And they would just they would 5-stack and stand in a brimstone molly every round.
Yeah.
And it's just like freehold power leveling in WoW.
Yeah.
I love that.
So they were just abusing the system so that they can level up the battle pass, which, you know, I mean, I guess you're just ruining the game for other people, but cool. I mean, if you want to spend your time doing that, then...
Never underestimate weaponized Papaganus, dude. Like, you cannot beat this. You just have to adapt.
Yeah, so I think that just goes without saying then that it needs to kind of be readjusted in ranked.
Sideshow.
I mean, you can't do it in ranked. It's on the unranked.
Sorry, in unrated.
What the fuck was that? Like, I was trying to drink, the tea bag kept falling in my mouth. Like, what the hell do you do once you get to the end?
You take the tea bag out. You don't even have. You shouldn't have it in the cup.
You're British, bro.
I don't know.
Why have you got it in the cup still?
Well, why not?
I actually do that too, because then you get more extracted flavor at length, and you don't have to actually be there.
You're supposed to let it steep for a set time. You don't want to just like, no, because you get.
Yeah, but I don't have time for that. I leave it in, I walk to the computer, and there's nowhere to put a wet tea bag once it's been in for a prolonged amount of time, because I don't want to bring like paper to the computer.
PC. I don't know why, like...
God.
Okay. That's
yeah, but then you get water everywhere, there's like tea on the floor, like, fuck that. It's just a mess. Just leave it in, drink, and have a good time.
I've been eating my tea bags so that I don't have to put them in weird places. Just swallow them. It's like chewing gum.
Nutrients.
Brilliant.
Moving on briskly. Where is Wyatt? I don't know. He's upstairs. I do want to bring him in for this next segment because...
Can you lend the mic?
He is so passionate about this topic. So am I, actually. He's kind of infected me with his passion about these dragon skins because I have never seen a worse skin in all my years.
You've never worse? You think it's that bad?
I think this is a terrible direction to go in for the game skins this early on. Like, we were all saying that this... Jaws made the initial point that he said that this is a kind of skin that you'd expect to see 4 years in when they've run out of ideas. The animations on it, like... Look at it, it's so distracting.
It is crazy distracting.
It's so distracting.
Wardell stopped using it halfway through the most recent tournament because it was distracting him too much, the op one. But Mixwell didn't have a problem with it, by the way, so I guess just EU brain is bigger.
This adds in these elements of like just instant glance value at weapons as well, because we were sat around watching a game. Somebody was using the judge, the judge skin for it, and we came up with 5 different answers for what gun it could be. While he was holding around the corner. We didn't know it was a judge. I said it was a Bucky. Someone else said it was like the Guardian. We didn't know what the skins were applied to, but just the glance value, looking on the screen, the dragon models look the same. Like from a first-person perspective, a lot of them look very similar. It just the way it wriggles as well. It's unsettling.
It is.
You don't have to have that, right? Like that is optional. You actually need to spend Radianite for it. It's kind of crazy. This is how they get you. This is like some gacha game level, like microtransaction pyramid system, because you see that clip, right? And like, oh, that looks, if you like that stuff, oh, that looks dope. Like, yeah, wicked. I basically have to give this dragon a prostate exam to make the gun fire. That's awesome. You get the gun, and then you're like, it doesn't move.
Yeah.
It is just erect. It doesn't move at all.
Oh wait, it doesn't move at all until you upgrade it.
Until you upgrade
you have to buy it's like everything else, right? Like you have to buy the VFX for it. So you get it, and it doesn't do anything. Like it's completely static. There's no fire effects. There's no like shaking or anything. Yeah. And then you have to buy it. You have to spend like $20 on Radianite to get that. You know what I mean? Like another.
Yeah, I mean their system's a little bit odd because you can earn Radianite through the Battle Pass system, which is just playing the game. But some people were arguing that they've kind of applied an arbitrary value to these Radianite points by making them purchasable, which inflates the value of the Battle Pass of what actually people are getting out of it. Like I've got like 200 Radiant points, and I haven't spent them on anything because all of the skins, in my opinion, have been hot garbage. Like just. Actually, all of them, with the exception of the Prism skin, and that's only because the Prism skin is just one shade of blue that shines. Like it's you can't fuck it up, you know. But the dragon skins,
because you like that minimalist feeding, Bren. You know.
Yeah, I mean, when I int, I like to int in style. I suppose I don't know, the minimalistic kind of feel. But another issue I think that some people have with it as well is if you don't like the animations but you like the color schemes, you can't choose between them. Like there's levels to it. Like level 2 is the animations, and beyond that is the different color schemes for the dragon. Yeah. And if you want the different color schemes, you have to have the animations with it.
That's right.
So it's
it's a tiered system. It progresses upwards. You can't just have a good color and say, oh, I don't want the animation. You know what I mean? Yeah. Can you even? Here's what I want. Can you turn the animation off? Well, once you get like the purple color. I don't think you can, right?
Yeah, I don't think so.
You have to use everything up until that point of getting that variant skin, like on the Radianite track. So you have to have the VFX, you have to have the finisher.
That doesn't make sense. Surely not. But maybe that is the case.
I can't say for sure, but that's one thing I'd really like them to implement. Because I bought the animations, and it was a mistake.
God, the frenzy.
Because now I don't want to use it. I want to use the skin because I think it's cool, but I don't. I regret buying the animations.
The frenzy really does look like a sex toy.
Come off it, dude.
How do you fire the weapon, really? Like, because there's a lot that's not seen. You know, like a lot of the gun models. Like, I get it. Like, it takes it's like a seahorse, right? It takes the clip into its chest or something like that, and that's cool. Like, I like but. How are you firing this thing? What, you pulling his tail or what?
The most annoying thing is the screaming. I mean, Jesus, just stop it already.
The screaming.
Like, we're gonna get our ad revenue gone.
What ad revenue?
No ad revenue for this.
Josh doesn't know where it's gone. You know? Josh has lost our ad revenue.
It's all disappeared, mate. It's all gone.
But I don't know if any of you have the skin, but if you actually like hold down primary fire, it starts screaming.
What?
The dragon starts screaming like you're actually ramming your fist up.
Can we find a video clip, Kurt, of someone like just spraying with the gun? Because like normally you shoot and it's just like the bullets like like if you hold down with the dragon, it goes like
okay.
And just starts screaming as there's magma coming from the mouth.
Yeah, that's right. When I fire it, my gun screams, "Wilma, where's my brontosaurus burger?"
We're limited in terms of what we can bring up because the internet is dying in our house, or either the internet or something's dying. But
well, trust me, it does start screaming like.
Honestly, my problem is that I use a visual cue to tell when the op is ready to scope in and fire again. So you can be like fast between peaks, and with the dragon doing that weird shit, because obviously it's like it can be bold action. It's really hard to tell when I can scope back in again. It's very disconcerting for me.
Yeah. I'm just not a fan. And like Jack said, he made a point that this is like the kind of skins you expect to see. Like this would fit in Fortnite, but another point that Wyatt keeps bringing up as well is like compared to Fortnite, you think a kid's going to be logging onto Valorant and he's going to be asking for his mum's credit card for $100 worth of skins that look like this when he could play
kids, mate.
Like Fortnite has. You can play as Captain. He keeps using this example. I'm going to steal it. You can play as Captain America for $20 in Fortnite. Yeah. Like that's like a reasonable thing. But
you can jerk off a screaming dragon for $120.
Yes, and yes. I I mean, it's not for kids though. It's not for kids. It is literally for
the whales
for adult kids. I bought it. I bought the bundle straight away. I see dragon. I click buy.
Yeah.
I didn't get. And I you know what? I had the Radiant points left over, but I maybe have bought them just to see how it worked. But then I wish I could turn them off. I want more customization. I like the color. Get rid of the animations. But I thought the Sovereign skin, that collection was amazing. I love that like angel mythos. I love that so much. So I adore those skins, bro. Yeah, I just wish they had a Vandal and Phantom.
I hate all the skins that they've released.
It was like Garanol when you kill someone, bro.
Yeah, the animation at the end is kind of cool. I will say this sets, I think, a bad precedent for just glance value in tournaments, though, as well. Because there is some sort of, not pay-to-win element, but definitely some element of kind of RNG. Like if you pick up a gun off somebody in a tournament and it is the dragon and you're not used to it because it wriggles around in your hands. Like that, these minor things can throw you off.
I agree with that. What, you don't think that's reasonable, Johnny? Like, for example, who were you saying earlier? Were you saying that Waddell swapped from using the dragon skin?
Yeah, he stopped.
Yeah, like if you're Waddell and you don't like playing with the dragon, and then you pick up a gun off the ground and it's the dragon, you're gonna be like, oh, for fuck's sake.
Like, you can't tell me, right? You can't be the kind of person that said that Zenyatta's ultimate and May's ultimate in Overwatch were, impacted the viewing experience, and then not think that this also has a similar negative impact on watchability.
Well,
right?
I don't know if it's watchability, but I'm worried about the players, is what I'm saying. Like, if there's players that don't prefer it and they pick up the guns. In terms of watchability, this is exactly what Riot wants. They want their esports tournaments to be the kind of sales pitch for the skins. They want all of their pros to use the high valued skins so that Timmy watches it and he's like, oh, I'm going to save up my $100 for the dragon skin. Really like it. And then he goes to baddragon.com and then he's ruined for life. His innocence is ruined. But it's...
I don't know how we got there. Okay.
I'm just a little bit concerned. I'm a little bit concerned that there's a line that needs to be drawn, and I fear that they may be going over it. But we can go off this topic of jerking dragons off soon.
Yeah. You're right, Sideshow, by the way. And Bren, for that matter, about players not being accustomed to the skin. I just hate it because it's the most ridiculous shit I've heard in esports.
Ah, just don't use it.
Yeah, kind of is, isn't it?
You don't like you don't have to use it.
Well, you know, if you're playing in a tournament and you have a Spectre and there's like, oh, there's a Vandal there, I'm gonna pick it up. Oh wait, it's a Dragon.
That's amazing, right? You can dissuade people from picking up your weapon to help their economy because the skin's so bad. Yeah, I guess that's true.
Part of me is like, pros get over it, but it's like actually, you know, quite true.
Especially for a game that's
gun skins for tournaments at some point.
I don't think they would disable it, right? Maybe the observer client would see skins, but maybe, I don't know. Like, there must be some sort of middle ground where they can do it so that your skins come through for your POV, your individual POV is setting, but other people's skins are just the default models. But for the observer client, they see all other skins. There's ways to get around this, 100%. Like,
there's precedent for that.
They just need to figure it out. Let's move on to the tournament structure, the actual talking about the tournaments that have happened. Because the Pulse Invitational was the tournament that I watched the most of over the last weekend. And my God, what a shit show the NA scene is becoming. And it's almost like, it's just set in the scriptures of esports that NA just becomes this joke of a region. And some people are going to be watching this and like, oh, how can you say that? But I don't know if we can pull up a bracket, Kurt. But just the qualification for this was just... My God, Cloud9 had the easiest path to the finals I've ever seen in my life.
It was really weird. I mean, there aren't some big teams involved here as well, right? Like T1 isn't playing, I suppose.
Their academy team played.
Yeah, and they did all right,
they took a map off. They took a game off Sentinels, though, in the group stages.
Yeah. Yeah, they did all right.
I just want to add real quick, because some people are going to be saying, well, how can you say Cloud9? I need to iterate on this, because I know someone's going to comment on it. Me saying Cloud9 had the easiest path to the finals when they played TSM, when TSM are considered the best team in the world. Let's just start there. TSM had an abysmal game against Cloud9. I don't know if you guys watched it. But
yeah, I went and watched it this morning.
TSM are a team that... They have 3 players that can turn up on almost every game. They have Wardell, who's a fantastic opper. They have Sabrosa as his kind of backup player, who's actually kind of falling off a little bit recently. And they have Drone as well, who's always quite consistent. Those 3 players are like your superstar aimers, your riflers, your oppers, whatever, that are always going to be performing well. That game against Cloud9, it was like the weird case scenario where there was going to, eventually, TSM were going to slip, and that was the game where they slipped. Where those 3 players... Wardell was being kept in check by 10s, so I'm not going to blame Wardell too much, but Drone and Sabrosa did not have a good game. And
Sabrosa especially.
Yeah. And Cloud9 actually did. They looked like an amateur team, I guess. I don't want to give them too much credit because this team, I watched that team and I'm just... I get a little bit annoyed.
I think that Cloud9 have improved, though. There's a couple of things that they've gotten better at. They've put Mitch on a much better role. Mitch on this, I was going to say Mercy. Mitch on the Sage, I think works a lot better. And Mitch has actually started playing really well. And that was always a player that I was not really sure what his place was in the team. Now, Shinobi is still like giga shitting the bed on a regular basis.
Yeah.
And and he's playing one of the like main, he's playing fucking Sova for fuck's sake. Like that's supposed to be a fragging role. And the guy's frequently bottom fragging for this team. So that's appalling. But C9 have also, they had some decent executes. And I think the key to beating TSM is always going to be to pummel them early in the pistol round.
Gotta pummel them, dude.
Pummel them early in the pistol round and keep the momentum going so that you can always keep an AWP out of Wardell's hands. And that puts a lot more pressure on Sabrosa and Drone, and Sabrosa he disappeared.
Yeah.
I also like C9's compositions that they play as well. Like obviously they bring that Sage in a lot and they use the Jett naturally sort of quite a lot. It's actually quite similar to what G2 were doing with David P. Like you can play this like aggressive Sage, but I just their playstyle seems way more momentum heavy as well, and like always bringing that set. Like they don't really play Brimstone at all, right? I think they play him on one of the
they play a bit.
Maps
they
in
play
that
him
series.
on Bind.
Yeah, that's sort of it. So I don't know. Their compositions are.
They're also Cloud9 are also really weird because when they go over to Split, like Split's a map where you really need that extra additional duelist, but Shinobi can't frag. So they have to put relics on the Rays instead. Like Shinobi just can't frag, so he can't play the Rays. So they have to move Shinobi over to play the Smoker, and he ends up playing like Omen on those maps. And it all goes to shit, which is part of what happened in the finals, I think.
Didn't they play? I think Cloud9 were one of the only teams who played. No, it was Plat actually that played the Arena. Yeah, that's another topic, but
yeah.
So are you like actually like, because it seems like you're happy with the fact that they're signing Mitch now to this roster now when he's playing Sage, but like, do you have any worries whatsoever if they just sign the remaining players like?
Yeah, I think it doesn't make. I don't think it makes any sense to sign Shinobi. I'm sure the guy's a great dude, and he's apparently their shot caller, but he has now found himself in a role where you need to frag. You are like the secondary fragger for this team, and he's what I looked up his stats earlier on. Actually, I'm gonna do it now because
it's not great.
Okay, so when he plays the Sova, which is his new role for this team, and I suppose you could say that he is also like would sometimes play the Breach, which is his second most played hero, because that also fits their team composition. But his average KD is 0.7, and then on the Breach it's 0.6. Kills per round is like half. He is like passive, only getting kills with his abilities, not able to string anything together. Yeah,
he takes the Odin on Ascent a bunch. I mean,
it's shocking. Like, this guy used to be their Sage player as well, back when Sages didn't really have to do anything, and they looked okay, and now he's just totally lost.
Does he just not have a positive KD on any role? Is that what I'm looking at here?
Yeah. I mean, he's played one game as Omen, which I guess was the split game, and I guess he put down a 1.1 KD.
I mean, that's 1.1, but yeah. Not ideal. Yeah, if Cloud9, my biggest... Wyatt had a different opinion of this as well when we were discussing this. Wyatt says he was praying that Cloud9 picked up the entire org just to teach them a lesson after the recent tournament. Because yeah, he like wants to see the world burn, because he was like, because he and myself, I think, are quite critical on these orgs who are coming into Valorant and they're just taking the lazy approach of just looking at tournament results and saying, oh, this team made it to the finals, yeah, we'll sign them, pick them up, these young lads, these young guns. And they don't really put any thought into the team itself and how it might work.
You're trying to call that Envy here, or?
I mean, that's exactly what Envy did, and we're going to get onto that later, and I've got some stern words for Hastro.
Okay, but Hastro's going to block you. He blocks me on Twitter if I say stuff about him.
Didn't Hastro step into a different role as well?
Yes.
Chief Gaming Officer or something now.
I think it's more team... Yeah, he's like more... in the trenches now with the teams, unless
it actually might have more to do. It could have something to do with corporate ownership of the brand as well. Like that might have been. Yeah. I actually don't know for sure, but I remember I said something about like how he picked up AKM and he gave me the fattest unfollow. I'm still reeling.
Unbelievable.
Anyway, it was a bit of a shame not to see Immortals go through. Like,
yeah,
did they get boomed by Code 7?
No, it's
Nicholas, baby, back in the mix. Watch out.
I think it was a bit of an unlucky tournament run as well, honestly, for Immortals, because
that Sentinels game was sick.
Well, they lost 13-12 to Code 7, I think, and then they lost 13-12 twice in a row to Sentinels to get knocked out 2-0. So, I mean, there's a lot of mistakes. If you go back and you look at the Immortals Sentinels game, a lot of errors. I wrote this down. I'm determined to make a full video about this because it was just monstrously stupid. But Immortals, when they were attacking on Bind, they pushed B 11 out of 12 of the rounds, and they just fucking whacked their heads into the brick wall. 11 out of 12 of the rounds were B hits, where Sinatra's just like flashing them from different angles on the Phoenix. It was one of the stupidest, like, I don't know, just like an absolute determination to plant the fucking bomb on B. And they were like, we're not giving up, you little bastards. We are not giving up. And it's just mental to watch it out and watch them fail in so many different ways attacking point B. And they got a couple of rounds and they actually strung together like a 5-7 half or something. But it was just, this was on Bind. It was just such a like fundamentally bad approach to their attack. And so I think that they made a lot of mistakes here, but they did get a bit unlucky as well, because you know, a couple of other rounds go their way and they end up going through the semis.
Yeah, I mean, this entire region, to sort of step away from this game specifically, is just like so frustrating to watch sometimes. Like, so many times I try to tune into these NA tournaments and they're just putting down the Sage wall on Bind point A, and they just do the same old. We smoke in, we put the Sage wall down, we plant, we back off, we throw mollies and orbital strike in, and that's how we play Bind. And they just do that on repeat all the time. Whereas some teams in EU, where they have success, it's actually rotating around the maps, trying to find picks, you know, trying to secure space in mid to then work around and actually like have some kind of slow play to find advantages with map control.
Yeah.
But it feels like some of these NA teams, I mean, they're just YOLO, let's hit this side all the time. What team was it? there was one team. Was it Gen G? It was
Gen G were playing
on
super
Ascent.
passive.
Gen G were playing.
Yeah, I was on Ascent where one team just kept going. Was it A short on Ascent? And that's pretty much all they did. They just took the orb on A, and then they just rotated short and just did that like 24 times in one match. And I was like, cool.
Gen G, I think, they looked the strongest in this tournament, obviously, because I think they were the most disciplined. They come into this tournament. They are a very disciplined team. They play quite patiently. I think they like to punish some teams that play a lot more aggressively into them. But I am convinced if Immortals were on the other side of this bracket and they weren't on the side where they had to go up against some of these other teams like Sentinels, I think they would have made it to the finals. That may be a hot take, but I think...
I think it would have been very close because I think that their style plays well against Gen G because Gen G give you so much room. But when they play against aggressive teams, they just give you like rope to hang themselves. Gen G just trade every kill. They're always playing together in like a buddy system. Yeah. And so if you're playing against like a fragging team like a Tens or a Sinatra or something, they'll just let you get the one kill and then they'll kill you. And then you're in a 4v4. And
I mean, that's why they beat
C9.
Because they traded for Tens all the time. Like Tens would always get so many entry frags on Bind specifically against Gen G. And there's always going to be someone there to kill Tens off. And I'm like, Tens entering doesn't work when you have a team like Gen G playing so disciplined and actually following up on those initial trades. So
I think I'm way more bullish on Sentinels than maybe you guys are, because I think that semi-final with Gen G was really good, and that one could have gone either way. Especially like I think Shazam had like a really good series. Obviously, I think Zombs kind of struggled a little bit in that semi-final. But there is a world where Sentinels win that one 2-1.
My issue with Sentinels is that when I was watching this game, and I said it when I was watching it, I think Gen G have got an excellent read of some of the teams that they play against, where if they know that the enemy team are ecoing, they just understand what to do against them, because they know that Sentinels are going to push mid on an eco. They know that Cloud9 are going to do the same. But they know that when these teams are, they feel like they have to take risks, so they're behind in some manner. Gen G know exactly how to play around that, and it's just super disciplined, trading out kills, not getting ahead, not giving them free kills, not giving them free weapons. And that kind of style is the antithesis of what a lot of teams in NA like to play right now, which is this hard, fast, puggy style.
Really puggy, yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I think though that Sentinels have made considerable improvements from tournament to tournament. Sentinels still look better than they did the last time we saw them. And last time we saw them, I was fucking gobsmacked by how much better they looked, because they were losing to amateur teams, and then they came into, what was it, the T1 one where they end up losing to FaZe, I think. But they looked a lot better. Yeah. And then in this tournament, they have more executes. They have more kind of set plays to be able to take map control. They are slowly getting better. And I think they've got to the point now where they are, genuinely you could have them in your top 5. I think you'd be slightly overrating them, but I think that you could have them in your top 5. Absolutely.
I love them. It's like a really unorthodox style, right? Like Sinatra is always trying to take heavies when he can, and Six playing that like aggressive sort of Sage style that we're starting to see a little bit more of, and then Shazam on Breach. I don't know, like just they're fun to watch, and I don't know, they've come together really quickly. I think that obviously with the signing now and them, this is why I think teams like Plat might actually start to look better, right? Because every player, all they say is that once we get signed to a team, that's when we really start getting going, because we have a ton of practice, we get paid, yada yada. But
what do we think then about Envy signing Twat? Because I hate this from these. I hate it when orgs pick up just wholesale rosters that have had one or two good performances. Like Twat they're an amateur team, or not anymore because they're signed by Envy, but they had that good showing in the charity tournament, the 100 Thieves charity cash up tournament.
How much stock do you even put in that?
Not a lot, because they were the only team that had everything to gain. Every other team just didn't really care that much, right? There's nothing on the line.
Well, Sentinels too.
But
yeah, I think Sentinels were genuinely playing like their best in that tournament as
well.
Sure,
but Twat as a team, they were trying to get signed, right? They're trying to go out there, and I don't buy into teams improving upon once they're signed. Actually, this early on in Valorant, because here's my thought process behind it. I was giving this some thought, and I was wondering, like, okay, so why does it feel like there's not that much improvement or really just sort of teams being pushed in terms of strategy or things. And I think it's because they don't have anything to really play for. Like the end goal for a lot of these players right now at the start of the esports scene is to get signed, get salaried, be able to play the game for a living. But there's no major to work for. There's no trophy. There's no championship. There's no best in the world title. Like everything's in free fall right now. Where's the end goal for a lot of these pro players to aim for, other than get signed and get paid?
I mean, you're still very much involved in the scene that you're participating in, and if you have like the mind of a champion, you're always going to aim for that top spot still, regardless of how big the scene is. I mean, this is what happened in the Overwatch beta when Envy at the time just went on this ridiculous win streak, and all the teams below them just set their sights on Envy. We're going to bring this team down. We are actually going to become the next best team, right? So even though the scene is pretty small and there are no majors, maybe it's different this time around because some of these players come from Counter-Strike where there's a lot different stakes. But I still think you aim for the top spot regardless. Okay,
come on. Like, in fairness, how many games, shortly after their inception have had something like the Ignition series that's been rolled out like this? Let's be fair. You compare this to like games like, I don't know, Overwatch in its nascency, right? You had the Nerd Street Gamers one that was what, 50K, right? There's one in Australia that's like a 10,000 Australian dollars, which is kind of insane. The We Play one's 50K. The Vitality one was 15K euros.
Oh, yeah, Japanese one's like 100.
What do you mean there's nothing to play for? There's no free fall. There is money being given to these guys for competing under rosters that aren't even signed.
So nothing to play for. There is prize money, but in Dota you've got TI. In League you've got the whatever worlds. In the Overwatch you've got the Overwatch League. You've got these end goals in your sight. You want to be the best in the world, that's what you got to aim for. In CS, you've got these majors that come around, and the majors are what's used to distinguish you between your peers as a top player, as a top gamer in that scene. Obviously, Valorant's not going to have that because they've launched during COVID, and it's a new esports scene. But I think to add a little bit of nuance to this idea that I've come up with, that there's not really much to play for as well, a lot of these players who are coming into Valorant have come in from CS, where they have just been stuck in a tier 2 scene, and I'll be honest with you, straight up, I'm not too familiar with it, but Wyatt definitely is, because he was a former team owner. He knows the tier 2 scene in CS very well, especially around NA, and from what he tells me, there is a notorious amount of players in tier 2 CS that potentially have the drive to compete in tier 1, but their only incentive is to play CS and earn money. They don't want to be the best in the world because it's too hard to be the best in the world. They're just going to earn the middle series tournaments, and apparently there's a lot of players right now moving into Valorant that have that same attitude where they're just not really concerned with being the best. They just see Valorant as a quick and easy buck, as they can just play on a team and they can carry over their CS fundamentals.
I think that's exactly the same though in like early days of Overwatch. Like you have people who are coming over from other games just trying to capitalize on it and see if they can get good. But
European,
a lot of people are, stuff like that, right? And then they'll be good for a while and they'll drop off. They'll end up getting overtaken because there are hungry people. There are people, like, for example, the tier 2 CS people. I know from like interviews with Eccles, for example, from Fish23 and like artists and stuff like that. These guys were stuck like playing shitty tier 2 tournaments and never getting anywhere in CS, and now they finally have the chance to actually be the best in the world. And it only takes it doesn't take the outrageous amount of time that it would be to become the best in the world at CS, but it takes like quite a bit of work, and they can see that if they put in quite a bit of work, they can be right now the best Valorant team in the world. So I think that's because it's a more attainable goal to be like at the top right now because it's so brand new. I think that's actually like one of the reasons that we see a lot of people being fired up in the first place.
And I would argue that there's more to play for now in early Valorant than there was in early Overwatch, even as much as people have called the Overwatch League so popped up. Let's think back to that year before the league started, when all of us were stuck in Europe. Woo! The one thing we did was the MSI tournament that didn't even go off. And there was like a takeover every now and then. Right.
Yeah. There was Apex going on though.
Like, so the player, but that is fair, right? But for European players especially, there was nothing to play for. Not a thing. So they had to prove that they were in it for more than the money. But you know what? It's okay to be in it for the money. I think eventually, if your motivations aren't right, you'll fall out. And so many people, like, what's Too Easy doing now? As a lawyer, I guess he didn't care that much about being the best at Overwatch. He could just, walk into a courtroom and talk smack like he did on Twitter. Or, Drunks now is working for DICE. Like he's happy sort of being there. So I don't know. I just feel like, yeah, maybe that shit attitude exists in NA because they've always been a little bit more, I don't know, laissez-faire at tier 2 and stuff like that, especially compared to Europe. But I also
I don't see the evidence for it either, though, Bren, because to tie this back to the original point, it was to do with Envy signing Together We Are Terrific. And I think that these amateur teams have actually, like, they've been grinding. Like Sentinels, for example, to use your comparison, there really isn't anything for these Sentinels guys to play for once they get in a fat check. Like, what I saw some article recently that was talking about Sinatra, maybe using a clip from a stream or something, I can't remember, talking about how he was getting paid as much or nearly as much or more. I can't remember the exact details, but within the same ballpark as his Overwatch salary. So like, it would be so easy for that team to just chill. As far as I'm aware, they don't have a coach. I don't think their staff is particularly, like down their necks trying to get them to improve. I think this is coming from the players as far as I can tell. So they're like the prime example of a team that really shouldn't have that much to play for, but they are still driven to improve, and they have made big improvements.
Yeah, I mean, there's also the case that, like, it takes a very unique mental if you get paid mad money in a scene and you know it, and you don't feel like you have to justify that salary. Because that is essentially what happened to me when I played for Misfits, is we got paid a top dollar in Overwatch, and then there was a level of expectation for our performances. And I think it's very similar for Sentinels now, where I would assume, I don't know anything, I would assume that they get paid among the top teams in the Valorant scene. And I can bet that those players feel a certain responsibility and pressure to live up to that money they are being paid. Because otherwise, they're in for a rude awakening, You can't just relax once you get your contract. Because then that contract will expire pretty fast.
Yeah, that's what I'm concerned with. I'm concerned that some of these teams and players are going to get signed, and then that's it. The motivation kind of falters and goes away because there's no major tournament in sight, right? It's all online, and that's partly because of COVID. But I mean, this is just my hypothesis.
I looked it up on Esports earnings, and Valorant's already paid out $500,000 in prize money, which is pretty good, right?
Someone like Caboose from Twat made not very much in CS before that.
Yeah. And they do. I mean, to focus in on the team a little bit more as well, the new team Envy, the Together We Are Terrific Twat team, has some pretty decent players. Like Mame's been pretty impressive with his AWPing and his jet play in general, and then Calypso and Caboose are just pretty solid. FNS is well known.
Mm-hmm. Well, he's a real veteran, right? Finesse has been quite close to like the top echelons. And remember, this is the team that lost Dapper to Sentinels earlier on. Like they kind of got hamstrung a little bit earlier on when he got kind of poached away from them, and they've had to sort of perform without him. So look, I'm okay with that. I just I don't want it to be like some. Remember when CLG picked up their Overwatch team, the first Overwatch team they picked up, and they made like a whole frag vid for these players that no one knew about, like Shiny and stuff like that. It was like Shiny, Goliath, I think. It was like the old EG team or whatever, and everyone's like, "What are you doing?" Like that really pissed people off because this team was like it'd been signed, come out of nowhere, and they did okay in the end. But I'm just like, okay, I think that Together We Are Terrific are like they're in the top 10, probably in NA.
Yes, they are.
Right. I mean, this is a great test bed for the idea of team gets signed, team improves because they have all the resources they need to practice or whatever. Sentinels came good. They looked shaky at first. They look better now. I reckon they're like 1 or 2 tournaments away from taking a W potentially. So I think let's use this team as our test bed for the model.
To look at it from a different angle, I don't know. Maybe the reason I'm molding is just because I think it feels like such an antiquated approach to picking up building a team in esports. When we've had so much information from the Overwatch League, presumably the League of Legends scene is pretty familiar with the process of trialing players. I'm not too familiar with it, so I can't comment. But I assume that they have tryouts and trials, and then they work different teams in different manners. I want to see more teams kind of build an approach like what Immortals have done in Valorant. But I know that's difficult because they probably just don't know the people. They don't have the systems in place to do that. So
who do you hire with each other?
Yeah, exactly. Who do you hire to build these systems, right? Who do you hire to start a tryout process?
And is it worth it?
Who's the coach for T1? Frod, right? Like, guy is a legend. But I mean, bear in mind, G2 are doing this as well, right? They haven't, like, they built this team around Mixwell. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And they put in players that Mixwell hasn't necessarily played with. Like, Patatek was the second one. He's like a Polish guy, right?
Yeah.
Then we know Pitt from NIP. And David P, by the way, who was pooing in the Vitality Open tournament.
He was pooing.
Even after he dominated me playing that Battle Sage, right? In the interview after, I think it was Mixwell, that he was speaking as if, there's no guarantee that this guy's going to be on the roster. Like, he is listed as a stand-in, and it was essentially a trial for him. So, you know, and don't forget, like that, like G2 dominated. To be fair, they dropped a bunch of Haven maps randomly in the upper bracket, but they always bounce back. Like, this is a team who's taken their time, and they're not sure, you know, if David P is going to be the guy they need. It could be a matter of sort of role compatibility, but you know, they're dominating. They're in a position where they can bring in a ringer and win.
I think that David P would be the best guy for them to sign. I mean, if they're looking to sign just a Sage player or someone that naturally fits into the meta right now, then really your options are David P or Law, in my opinion. There really isn't anybody else that stands out in the European scene that's on the same kind of level as the G2 guys. And David P, I know that he got a lot of frags and he got a lot of clutches as well. But when you actually watch him, he takes the most absurd flanks and lurks I've ever seen. He's like always trying to sneak into areas and get behind people and go for these long wraparounds. So it's like a very specific, it reminds me of like Get Right in the early days of CSGO, where he's just taking wild flanks around behind everybody and then getting 3Ks towards the end.
There's this mental pistol clip of him on B-site ascent on defense where it's like with it's a pistol round. He pushes up with his slow orb and then gets like a 4-5K. Like
he's actually David P hands down has the best slow orb usage in fights out of any Sage that I've seen, and it's not even close. A lot of people don't even think about just utilizing Sage utility in the middle of fights because it's not really designed for that. It's designed to stop rushes, but he uses them so smartly in the middle of firefights where you have if you can make your opponents land in a slow orb, they're not going to be able to take like jiggle peeks. They're not going to be able to reset. They're not going to be able to hide behind stuff. So it just mows them down. Yeah. It's really smart.
Well, you also means you need less correction in a pistol fight, right? Like corrections with the ghost is kind of what kills you. So, I mean, but they're taking their time with him. You know what I mean? I also have noticed now more recently in Europe, they're playing less Sage on buy-in specifically. They're just moving away from that in general. So
that's interesting.
I don't know. Me. Yeah, we've seen a couple of teams sort of do that. So I don't know like what else David P really has in his arsenal. Obviously the gun skills there and the brains there. I hope they pick him up eventually. I also like it because it would be like a very EU team, right? You'd have a Spaniard, a Pole, a Swede. Where's Artist from? Is it Latvia?
Artist is from the UK,
Belgium.
but
he's from Liverpool, but he's Latvian descent.
So it's almost like,
or maybe he is Latvian, but he grew up in Lithuania, grew up in Liverpool. I don't know. But the man's got a fucking thick Scouse accent. Like he definitely did not grow up in Latvia. He grew up in Liverpool.
That's dope. Okay, fair enough. Yeah. Either way, it's kind of a cool mix. So I like what they're doing with this all-star EU roster. You know,
it definitely is all-star though. I mean, you look at this team and they have just picked up outrageous talent, and the players are all really smart as well. Because they played in a tournament, the Vitality Open, where the group stage and actually the double elim bracket, not all of the games were casted. Mixwell was streaming, and so was Pith, but Pith's VODs are locked, and David P was as well. So I was watching from Mixwell. I'm not going to sub to Pith. Like, fuck off. I'm not going to sub just to watch your VODs. Get out of here. Yes, you can keep your sexy cyber cages. I'm good. But I was watching from David P and Mixwell's pods. I went back and I watched each game from both of their point of views. And the comms are really nice. Like, all of their players really know how to set up little mini plays. They're all really intelligent. They don't really have like a set shot caller, which I think that there were a few times that it made them fall over because they're like making a play somewhere and someone else didn't realize how to exactly back them up. But most of the time it just keeps them so flexible. It's much more of like an Overwatch kind of team comm structure than a CS:GO one.
Where it's
I
just
think.
fluid. You're not set in stone. It's
Yeah.
not,
And each player is calling to make their own plays. So it's like if you have an ult or you have an ability or a play you want to go for, you're telling your teammates what you want them to do to set you up for success. And I think that's absolutely the best way going forward for Valorant.
They play like
you got to keep it dynamic.
What do you
they
think,
actually
Johnny,
have more
about
the NA Puggy style. Like it's so aggressive, especially between artists. Well, his raise is so filthy, bro. They play like psychos.
Yeah.
What do you think, Johnny, about the G2 and the EU scene in general?
I mean, I think that they probably have the most well-rounded team in terms of firepower, probably 100%. In the world even. Because a lot of the times when we are discussing these NA teams, it's like they usually have 1 or 2 fraggers, like TSM and Wardell is like a great example of that. Whereas G2 just has firepower on every single role. That being said, I have to say that I'm a little bit concerned with their playstyle moving forward. Because as Mitch said, it does feel a little bit puggy at times, especially when you have David P lurking and playing so aggressive on this stage as well. Where it's like, sometimes, like Mixwell is doing his best tense impression, and it's just like buying judges and buying shorties, and it's just like, he bought a shorty on the pistol round of Split and was just running around with a shorty. It's like,
I mean,
at some point, teams will start adapting to this aggression, and
I think they already did.
further back.
So I was watching, you know, that Mitch was saying earlier about all those random Haven games that they dropped. Well, they started out on Haven in the group stages, and because G2 played this first tournament, you could like live see teams adapting to them as they played out this tournament. So the first time they played in the group stages, they're like on defense, they're pushing out a lot of different angles. They're pushing A aggressive to take control along, and then the next round they'll push C aggressive, or sometimes they'll push mid, and it was just catching people out constantly. And David P's going on these wild lurks as well. And then actually when they played against Party Pirates and Prodigy later on in the tournaments, I think it was probably like upper bracket final and grand final or something, they lost both of their Haven games, which is their map pick. It's what G2 thought was their best map. And part of the reason when I was watching is because teams would just fake one push, and then they'd sit there and they'd wait for David P to feed into them, going for a lurk.
He would extend all the time because he'd get the information in mid, and then he would push his advantage, and they just know that he was coming and just kill him, and then they can just rotate. I think Prodigy actually played a beautiful Haven attack because the way they were rotating all the time. Like the amount of times they like pushed into Garage on Haven, and then they rotated away from Garage, and then you had 3 people on the defensive side on C already. Like I thought it was really well played, and I also think that G2 got in their own heads a little bit on that Haven, because there were so many times like Mixwell would like hold Garage with an op or something, and then before he's even seen or heard anything, he would just rotate off, and it just felt like they were not trying to take as much map control as I wish they had, because they were making like assumptions where Prodigy would push, etc.
They do like to make very hard reads. That's something you can tell by listening to their comms, is that whenever David P pushes out of an area, they like to like hard rotate to one of the other bomb sites because they're predicting it. Or they'll get halfway through a round and they'll be like, I have a gut feeling they're pushing that side, let's stack it. And I think that Haven, because it has 3 bomb sites, they can sometimes outplay themselves, because they're, once it gets late into a round, if you pick correctly, you're going to dominate. So if you have a map where you can just read your opponent, you're going to pound them because you're in the right place at the right time. Sometimes their reads are just off and they just are miles away.
Do we still think they're the best team in Europe right now currently?
I mean, it's them or Party Pirates, right?
I mean, absolutely. I think they're the best.
I mean, what the next closest team is what Prodigy, which is just a revolving door of players under that org, right? Like, maybe there's like, I mean, Fabricant took a map off them, right? You know, okay, here's what I want to understand. On the same topic, did you guys see Ryan Central's tweet on the 10th of this month, where he put out, like, it was a document that had predictions from all of the casters and other people. And the vast majority of people thought that Fabricant would beat G2 in that tournament.
Was that before G2 signings?
No, I don't think so. People just thought that Fabricant was really good. I don't know. I think that that's a bit of disrespect on the players of G2, because Fabricant, the reason that, in my opinion, the reason that Fabricant are so good in EU right now is because they've figured out their style. They understand their style better than any other team does. Probably in the world, actually, but they are not the greatest fraggers in the world. They just get how to play without a Sage. They're the team that's played the longest without a Sage across the entirety of Valorant, and they have figured out how to make their comp work. And most of the time, they're playing against teams that haven't played against Sageless comps that much. And so they understand their style better than their opponents understand their style. But I don't know why people thought that G2 wouldn't be able to read it. They're such smart players, and their fragging power is way better than Fabricants, apart from Zipac.
G2, then, I don't know, Fish 1, 2, 3?
Maybe.
Then I don't know who's better at Fabricant and NIP, right?
I mean, we're going to get onto that as well.
NIP, actually, having added the HypHypHyp core, they could be the second best team, or maybe the best.
I want to talk a little bit first, though, before we jump into these other teams. Maybe it's better to jump into the teams, but I just want to open the floor with a general question here. Do you... okay. So I think, does everyone here agree that EU looks like the stronger region in terms of just general team play across the board compared to NA?
Depends about across the board. I mean,
there's a huge gulf between like one team and like the rest in Europe right now, I think, until we see what this new NIP team looks like.
I'm inclined to say yes.
I mean, I actually like the strategic, like some of the teams, like even started from CS, who were, I don't know, maybe the 5th or 6th best team, seems to have more understanding of the game than most of the top NA teams, I think.
Yeah, okay, so this is where this idea came from, is because I just got done watching the Pulse Invitational tournament, which basically watched all the teams in NA apart from T1. We saw TSM slump, which would normally be the best team, and I got really tilted at watching the one side of the bracket where it's just kind of like this easy run for Cloud9, and they weren't really playing that well. And then I watched the EU tournaments, and I came across 2 amateur teams that wouldn't even be considered. I can't even recall who they were. But right after that, there was EU tournaments that were going on, and the difference in play was immediately noticeable, just in terms of discipline, I think. And this isn't just EU bias, because I've been living in North America long enough to be just indoctrinated by K-Kona. So, like, I want NA to be good, but the difference is quite immediate. And I wonder, do you guys think this is because there is less money in EU, so it is more competitive for those sponsorship opportunities, more competitive for the team spots than NA? NA is a lot more free-flowing in terms of the amount of team opportunities.
Flush with cash.
Yeah. Do you think that plays into it? The competition is a little bit more higher in terms of who can get signed in EU?
I don't really buy that personally. I think it's probably more to do with the CS veterans and like the play style of CS teams that have come over into Valorant, because European CS teams tend to be less puggy, a bit more of like figuring out set executes and the best way of playing the game and that kind of stuff. And even though that hasn't permeated thoroughly, there's some outrageous fraggers in EU all over the place, but they're kind of scattered on different teams. And then a lot of teams have like a couple of good maps where they have some very nice strategies. I still think TSM, when they play normally and they don't have a really shit tournament like they did recently, I still think TSM would easily go toe-to-toe with any of the top European teams. Apart from maybe G2, who can output more firepower than them, but I don't think there's a gulf. I think there's just a different play style.
I don't even think the G2 is necessarily as meticulous as a lot of the other European teams as well. I think they pushed aggressively for information from David P, and then they tried to pincer or like make early rotate so they could just stack aside.
They've still got a lot to do.
Yeah, exactly. So that will calm down. I think they're playing around like really strong fraggers right now. I mean, I would love to see, I'd love to see in Valorant a team that played like early Na'Vi did in CS, right? Lauren was talking about this the other day, and I tend to agree. Where like even before Simple, right? Where they'd like waste the entire round just chilling, right? And they make these executes that were like really solidly pre-planned, but right at the end of the round, like
we've seen
20 seconds left in the round.
Teams have been doing this in the EU side. We've seen teams doing it, and I love that style
actually
of play.
Are the closest. I think from watching Party Parrots, I would say that they're about as close as you get.
You know why that is, right?
It's Angel, right?
Yeah. There's a Hellraisers for the longer. I cast a lot of tier 2 European Counter-Strike, and there's a lot of guys like Angel and Bondic and stuff, like just trying to frag out and like flip side tactics and stuff like that. And they were like mini Na'Vi. they were like the mini Na'Vi back at the time. They really tried to emulate that same style. So I want to see more of that, but like I think that naturally as like set plays become more prevalent.
Actually, I really do love it as well, because when I was watching it live, it reminded me it's kind of a different feel in a game like Valorant, because you have all these different abilities, all these different variables that come into play when you're playing that play style. I think it almost confuses teams more, because the entire idea of why you play down to the clock and you make your execute right at the end and you're keeping the other team guessing is because, one, it gives them less time to rotate if they're still playing loose all over the map, but two, it forces their hand. And I think it in a weird way, it gives them more win conditions, because teams, if they stop the plant, they can win the round. So their game plan of what they had in their minds of maybe waiting for their team to rotate, it forces their hand early. And sometimes you get teams that get flustered in the moment because there's so little time. They have to, like, they get in their own heads. They're like, well, if I kill the planter right now, then that's the round, we win it. And suddenly two players who are holding down the site, normally they would be playing for the retake. They play aggressively into 5 or whatever. They die, the bomb goes down. And what would have been a winnable round is no longer winnable. I really, really like playing the clock, and I think forcing teams to make mistakes. It's because it's so reminiscent of when I was really into CS in 2015. So reminiscent. So it's nice to see.
I mean, the idea is to force teams to, like, defenders to take risks by trying to push up for information, right? You give them nothing, and you like force them into that.
Yeah, or use their utility, you know? Utility becomes way less predictable in the later half of the round, because all 4 of us, when we go into a Valorant server, we know what we're doing the first 5 seconds of the round. If we're playing Sova, we're going to shoot that recon bolt, you know, or we're going to pull out the drone. If we're playing Race, we're going to throw some paint shells, and like we're going to do that the first 10 seconds of the round.
Ooh, Johnny.
Johnny's learning the lingo. Next thing you know, he's going to learn the lingo. Wires.
Yeah, the trap wires, cyber cages. You know, I got it all sorted. The neural theft. Yeah, you know.
Nice.
Yeah, there we go.
From the shadows. An ultimate that begins with a preposition.
The run it back, bro. The Phoenix pulling out the run it back. I hate when, like, the comment. You can't blame the commentators, because I mean that is what the ability is called. But, you know, also trying to get grand final, I hate them calling, like, Phoenix uses run it back. You know, here it goes.
Okay. I don't feel any sympathy for that. When I have to say, kinetic grasp, then, you know, gravitic flux, and then I have to say amplification matrix, and then immortality field in the same sentence.
Accretion.
Like,
I really do think that From the Shadows is a ridiculous name, though, because it's not a noun. It's not. It doesn't make sense.
Sounds like a post-grunge song from like the mid-90s.
I was gonna make a point though. Yeah, so I mean, early on in this game when we did play even like the close beta and stuff, I hated when someone on our team would always call, like, let's just rush B, and I'm like, no, you moron. Like, they have a Sage and he's literally holding his slow orb as you're calling for the rush. Like, no, force out a slow or 2, maybe even a wall, and then we can get some utility out, because they're forced to use it before us. And then we can actually work with that advantage. So,
tell you what I love actually about G2 that ties into your point, Johnny, is that they do that kind of. So a lot of teams now, instead of making the rushes on the offense, they'll do like little pushes on defense, right? Because it's different to CS. You start defensively really far up. You start on the site. You start really pressed up. So you can go for aggressive peaks that you could never have done in CS. And so you can weave in these awesome aggressive defensive plays where you take a peek out of Haven Garage, or you're taking a peek down B long on Bind or something. And what I really like about G2 is that they do those aggressive defenses, but they also, their default setups on attack are normally designed to shut down aggressive defenses. So they just like immediately remove a whole strategy from the game. They use utility to do it, but every single time on Haven, David P on attack will shoot his slow orb at Garage. And it's like, most of the time it's not going to do anything, but you are just guaranteeing you're not going to get randomly killed from Garage. And it just, you immediately control the map and you shut it down, which
it does a big main on ascent every round. Just slams a slow orb and walks into the corridor and hopes someone's already standing in it.
Yeah. I think it's really smart though. This whole game is about map control, really. Even more so, I think, than CS is, because you start so close to each other that you immediately start fighting over map control, like right from the go. And so using that utility right at the beginning, I think is a great idea for G2, and they spice it up.
I'm gonna reel it back to this topic because we've kind of drifted away from the original point of it. But the original topic that we had was best player in the world, and this is a difficult one. I don't know. This is Josh that wrote this, so you know.
Well, the reason I wrote it was because Fion put out a tweet about it, and they've started. ESPN has started doing power rankings for teams as well. And I think it's too early to say power rankings for teams, but I think it's around the right time in the game to start talking about who the best players are. You know what I mean? I think that you can start having a conversation about who the best players are. Maybe not the best player, but like
you got to split it up though, right? Oppers and riflers.
And
you can't
do it by region as well?
Yeah, I
mean, on the opposition.
Yeah.
Because you've wrote artists here, hands down, right? But you've watched a lot of EU Valorant as well. Jesker agrees. Huh?
I like that take. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I would agree with you that Artis is probably the best opera in the world.
I mean, Wardell's also incredible. I'm not going to take anything away from him. Like, he's actually
Wardell
nuts.
is very good.
But doesn't Tens get to be in this argument as well?
Sorry, what?
Doesn't Tens get to be in this conversation as well?
That was what I was going to say. How much stock do you put in Tens performances?
I actually think Tens is fantastic too. If I was to make like a super team, I would want Tens and Ardis, I think, because they both are this rare breed of players who are fantastic riflers, can play a range of different heroes, and they've got unreal AWP skills as well. Like, Wardell's rifle isn't that good, but Ardis is. And so is Tens. They're absurdly good at those things. Like, what else? All right,
especially now when you have Ardis playing the Soba as well, where it's like,
he's playing secondary AWPer on his team to Mixwell as well, by the way. And Mixwell's another player that has an absurd AWP and rifle. These players are just game changing, and G2's got two of them.
I just want to say as well, Scream pooed on Prodigy earlier today.
Yeah,
he pooed on them, bro.
Mean, statistically, I think over the course of the entire maps, he got over 40 kills.
42-22.
Unbelievable. Yeah. Scream is definitely, I think, in the running if you're going to talk about the best player in the world.
Yeah, if you're talking about riflers only, if you ignore the AWP, then you got to have like Scream, Zipan, maybe Drone as well. Like, Drone's really good.
Yeah.
When he's not pulling the bed and costing TSM a really key.
Well, that's the thing, though. That was only the one.
He's been better than Subrosa's been,
He's been pretty consistent, you know? Yeah. It's a very open question, and one that cannot really be distilled by 4 Papegas, I feel like.
Yeah, but I think you've got to the point, in my opinion, in Valorant where you can start having these kind of discussions, more so than you can with power rankings, because the thing with power rankings is the teams are going to be learning things every week. They're going to be adding new executes, adding things. They're going to be getting better and better, but different teams are going to jump up at different times. Like, Sentinels are learning and they're getting better every tournament, but Gen G fixed something. They moved their AWP onto Sova, and they pulled Sage away from him and put someone else around, and they instantly got better. So there was like a big jump there from one tournament to the next. So I think power rankings don't make too much sense as teams are improving so fast and so unevenly.
I mean,
but the players themselves are actually fairly consistent.
Yeah, you're right. This stuff is evolving at blistering speed. I mean, I'm pretty sure like Fion didn't even have Cloud9 in his top 5 in his power rankings.
Yeah.
I mean, I actually completely agree with that. I thought Fion's power rankings, if you were going to do them, were the most accurate.
For those who are watching, he had TSM number 1, T1 number 2, Gen G at 3, Immortals at 4, Sentinels at 5, then C9, then Together We Are Terrific, 100 Thieves, Code 7, Way Too French, yada yada.
Wait, where was FaZe?
Not on there. Well, I mean,
not on there, right?
They have
well, that's true, I suppose. Yeah, FaZe had a good performance though, and that's the other weird thing, right? Is that FaZe aren't even a team, and they're doing really well.
They're doing it right. They got Jason R, they got Corey, and this is what Bren was saying before that he hated about the Envy pickup. That's what FaZe is doing, right?
Except, I mean, I like the approach, except that Jason R didn't even play with them, and he hasn't been scrimming with them at all. And is he even going to be an active player, or is he just a streamer?
He's going to be an active player. Why?
Right, yeah,
somebody told me he's going to be an active player.
Well, then why not scrim with him? Yeah. Why are you signing him? Like, I like the approach of signing people one by one. Yeah, but if you're going to sign a player like Jason R, then you should be trying him out. You should be scrimming him. Like, if you actually care about whether the team's going to be good or not. And if you're not, then you're just signing him for the clout.
I like
I mean, that's the FaZe way,
on
isn't
that
it?
roster.
What, sorry?
I liked Sam on that roster instead of Jason R. He was standing with him, right? They had what? They had Def, Marv, and
Marv
boy
was
Zachary.
insanely good. Marv was really good.
And Zachary, who actually stepped up later on, but he was by far the streakiest player on that roster, though. He had some really off games, and then I think he finished fairly well. But when Zachary wasn't firing, that team was really struggling. That was the T1 Ignition tournament, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know who knows what they're doing. I don't know if there's any news on it recently, but the whole this Jason R thing is kind of weird because I think they signed him and Corey at the same time, right? Or like, here's our thing. There was like a video of Jason R. He was like saying something or other. But to be fair, as far as NACS players, like I remember, like back on Splice, Jason R made a real splash early on. So
the reason we thought he wasn't signed as a player was because he's been streaming a bunch of different games, not Valorant, and it seemed like he was just being signed as a streamer, as like a Valorant streamer. But maybe I don't know. It does seem like the phase way to pick up a big streamer who plays the games. Yeah, of course it is. Like the 100 Thieves way, where they picked up Hiko. Like, yes, Hiko is really good, but there's a chance because he's a veteran. He's getting on a little bit. He might fall off in a year, but he's been picked up because he is currently the biggest Valorant streamer in the world.
But it's not. It's Corey pickup wasn't that, right? Like Corey was not, out there streaming and all that sort of stuff.
No, but you know that you're going to get clout.
Yeah. It might play into it because Corey was one of the most popular Overwatch players. He had a pre-existing following coming in.
Not as big as Jason R's, though. If you look at the announcement posts and stuff like that, like it was almost like twice as many people were hyped about Jason R than they were about Corey.
Yeah. I mean, what's next? Me joining a Valorant team?
I mean...
Okay. No,
I don't know. I don't really get FaZe Clan. I enjoyed watching him. I remember watching him. It was like FaZe Clan versus Sentinels.
That was fun.
And look, like honestly, the players have picked up. Marv is sick. Like a Def obviously is like a really storied NACS player. I don't know. We'll see what they're doing, but they've been quiet, right? They haven't really been competing since the T1 thing.
Yeah, they haven't done anything, which is why I suppose it makes sense not to power rank them. But who knows how good they're going to be? Afterwards.
Arda, our good mate Arda from ESPN had him at number 8, so good on him.
Why not leave T1 out?
Yeah, T1 haven't played that much either, but they've played more tournaments than FaZe have.
They both have it ranked. T1 ranked at number 2.
Yeah, it feels like by default they just want to consider them at that point.
I mean, you have Skadoodle, Brax, and AZK on this team, so I guess I really enjoyed watching Crashies. I think he was the Cypher player, right?
Yeah, he was good.
I want to move this on.
What were their last match actually?
What's right?
Won the last match.
When were there? It was T1. The T1.
T1 played against TSM. Yeah. They got boomed by them in that final game.
There's two more
I'm kind
teams.
of molding that they're not playing more.
Yeah, it's annoying. I mean, there's on the other hand though, it's kind of lovely that TSM, the best team in the world, or best team in NA, sorry, the TSM have been playing in so many of these little tournaments. TSM have been playing in like the Pittsburgh tournaments and all of the little shitty ones as well.
The Nerd Street Gamer ones, like
and they actually ended up being the best team as well. So I think there's some kind of justice in that, that we haven't actually been denied watching the best team in NA. We've been watching them the entire time.
Yeah,
the Pittsburgh Knights tournament series. I think it's they also competed in that Gamers for Equality, the Cash App. Tournament, right?
Yeah.
They got boomed out in the group stages. That was the Sentinels that beat.
They were playing with Myth though.
I'm making an executive decision to moving on. We got 2 more teams to talk about.
Right.
2 more teams. Nip is going to be the first one here because they signed a core of Hip Hooray.
I'm so excited for this team.
Yeah,
I think this is genuinely going to be a super interesting team to follow.
I think they are as well.
Region.
Correct me if I'm wrong. Sorry, Johnny. You might know more actually. You might be able to answer my question here. You got the raised eyebrows. I don't know. With this core, this HypHypHyp's core, they've been swapping in out players, right?
What do you mean by swapping?
Yeah, Rhyme and Lucker hasn't played.
They've been experimenting with their core roster. They haven't just stuck to 5 and just got picked up.
No. HypHypHyp always had the same 5 players, I think.
Really?
But NIP didn't.
Yeah, most recently, Lucker and Rhyme were playing with 2 Turkish players.
But that was just a mixed roster for Prodigy. Like HypHypHyp's players that like the team HypHypHyp that has been doing really well. I think they've been playing with the same team since the beginning, haven't they? Like it was these guys, and then it was Law, and then it was who was the other guy? I can't even remember.
What Creative?
Korea.
Oh no, Korea got signed.
Yeah,
he got signed to the team.
Yeah.
Pettiscale. It was Pettiscale, the Cypher player. Yeah, so they were playing with like those 5 people pretty much the whole time, and they did really well. I don't know. There's a lot to talk about with this team.
Yeah, I mean, let's start with the roles. Like, what roles do you even play? Because Korea is obviously going to play the Omen.
We know what they're doing. We have data from these guys. They played this morning and they smacked Forza, who randomly got invited to this weekend.
I watched that game.
Yeah, I'm just saying that they've been so inconsistent in the roles. What?
Yeah.
Yeah, I watched that game last night.
I haven't watched this game.
I haven't watched it either.
I remember I watched the Bind map, which was the last map. I think neither map was really close, but Korea was playing Omen for the entirety of it.
And
this is Korea's
this is super strange though. This is really weird, right? Because to give the context for like why me and Johnny are confused about what roles they would run in the first place, Luck has been an AWPer. He's mostly played Jett. Okay, and then Rhyme has been a smoker. He has mostly played Brimstone and Omen, and so you've taken like a smoker and you've added in Korea, who's probably the best Omen player that I've personally seen. But he basically only plays Omen. I've never seen him play Brim particularly. I think he's played it on like 1 or 2 maps. So now you've got 2 smokers on the same team. You've added Fearoth, who normally plays Sova, which is normally your AWPer. And Fearoth is normally like an AWPer. So, okay, you've got Lucker and Fearoth, who are the 2 AWPers, and then Hip is normally the entry player. But that doesn't really make sense because you don't have a Sage and you don't have a Cypher, the 2 players.
Well, that's the thing,
roles
right?
that are like the most
then you
important.
add Rhyme.
Rhyme plays Cypher, right?
No, he never had one before.
Hold on. Okay, so Rhyme used to play a lot of Race, and now he started playing more Sage, especially in this last tournament with Prodigy. So he's played Sage, and he had that Haven game against G2 that he absolutely banged people. And then, I mean, Rhyme, I think I read some article that Rhyme has played the most different agents in competitive Valorant with like 7 or something. And then you have Locker, who's also playing Sage, the same tournament as Rhyme. And then you have Hip just kind of like playing
he played Sage once in the groups as well.
Yeah, he played Sage, but then he also plays a bunch of Reyna and Raze. Yeah. I don't like the Reyna pick. I don't think.
I mean, he played awfully in that game against G2. Hip got absolutely rolled.
Hip's mechanics on Reyna are actually all right, but I think his like positioning and his aim is not naturally conducive to being a Reyna player.
I don't think consistently you can play Reyna as much anymore, though.
Yeah,
like, I don't like it strategically. And so then I'm like, okay, well then you'd probably want to put Hip on the race pretty much full time and maybe, I don't know, like a Breach or something.
Well, I mean, I assumed that Hip was going to be playing the Sage for this team because you want Lucker and Fearoth on roles where they can AWP. And then I saw that someone tweeted that Ryan was going to be playing the Cypher. Now, I've looked at the roles that they're playing. You've got it up on the screen right now. I didn't watch this game, but Mitch was saying he did. Yeah, Lucker's playing the Sage. He is the AWPer for this team. He should be. Yeah. I assume he was AWPing. Sage AWP is something that teams did at the beginning of the year, and they had to move away from because it's not good. It limits you massively in the aggressive angles.
Wasn't it just the cheese of like just getting up on boxes and like making use of the wall mode?
Yeah, basically.
Teams would still doing that, but they just wouldn't have their Sage AWP. They just boost up onto the wall.
Yeah, I think the only player that Sage AWPs now is Skadoodle, isn't it? I think that's the only player.
Lucker.
Yeah, I mean, apart from Lucker, obviously that's what we're talking about. Yeah, Bren. I called you Matt there because you were making a dumb point.
That spans. But
I don't know what they're doing yet. Like, remember, like they've been these guys have been a mixed team until the NIP pickup. But this match, the win against Forza this morning means absolutely stuff all. Like, it doesn't mean anything. I'd like to see like if there's some solidification of roles here because this is like completely different look. They just come off the back of playing. Yeah, well, they played the Vitality tournament with a mix. So, still, I mean, Hip looked decent this morning. I don't know. We'll see. They have some tough competition in this bracket. So. Well, we'll see.
I think Fearoth is a weird pick for this team, and he's listed as the team captain. But if I was to go through the HypHypHyp roster and the kind of players that I kind of overlooked, Fearoth would be one of them. I didn't think that team really thrived in their AWPing, and Fearoth was their main AWPer. And so to have him on the team, I guess, like fulfills that secondary AWP position, and he's going to be playing the Sova. And his fragging isn't bad by any means. He just didn't stand out to me. But it just makes their roles so weird that I feel like if they had picked up Law instead from HypHypHyp, there's probably some like calling and leadership reason why they didn't, but it would have been more natural.
I think their test comes in the next game. They are playing. They're playing Fish 1, 2, 3 in the Witches.
Yeah.
Our next team.
Oh wow, that will
here.
be huge.
That's a match.
Actually.
Because
that's a match to keep an eye on.
It's
sure.
been rumored that Fish 1, 2, 3 are being signed by Liquid with Scream as well. What an interesting team. What an interesting, I guess, story for Fish 1, 2, 3 as well. Because this team was just, they played so much around Artisan and his AWPing. And how could you not? And with his move over to G2, I guess not really the case. They've had to adapt, and they've added a rifler. They've added Scream. This is just not the way I would have figured this would have gone.
It makes no sense. I mean, it just fundamentally makes no sense that this team would play with Scream. And because they were lacking an AWPer, none of their other players AWP. And that was such a key part about how they were able to dominate the early days of Valorant, was that they had like really slow style whenever Artist could AWP, and then they would just rush whenever he didn't have the AWP. And now they're having Eccles primary AWP, and I don't know whether that's going to work for them, because he's their smoker as well. It's so weird putting the AWP in the hands of people that can't play aggressive positions easily.
Yeah, that's strange. It's also strange as well. I mean, Scream was rumored to be going over to G2, but I just find it odd that Scream, the lone Belgium, is going to be joining a team with Brits. That never goes well. Actually, never goes well. The more Brits you add to a team, the more chance it has of imploding.
In fairness, I mean, you had Scream didn't get along with his French teammates either, right? Like there was a whole problem with back on G2 in Counter-Strike with these guys like Shox and Kenny S. Like these guys like didn't want to practice, and Scream just was like obsessed with the hype around his around his one taps. It was like, I know it sounds like a meme, but he was like throwing rounds by trying to go for first shot kills where he should be spraying down, and his team was getting really pissed. Like MBK went on record saying how frustrating this was and how much he was holding him back.
I think he went down to the station.
I've interviewed Adil before a couple times actually, and you know, I don't know. I think he's the kind of guy to definitely believe his own hype here. I'd be very interested to see how he fits into this team, right? I want to see if his work ethic matches up with the rest of the players, right? Because like Eccles and all these other guys obviously have been grinding for a long time, and they look really good early on in Valorant. I mean, it's a similar concept though to like what G2 are doing, building around Mixwell. Obviously, one's an AWPer, one is not. You have to mesh, right? You have to mesh in playstyle, attitude, all that kind of stuff. And I want to see if the Legend of Scream gets a second go, or if this is going to be it. So it's just weird, but I mean, they boomed a terrible team this morning. So I mean, they've been Prodigy who are just mixing players in. So.
I mean, you say it's similar to like the G2 approach. It reminds me a bit more of like 100 Thieves just adding Hiko into a team that was doing all right. But it doesn't really make sense, right? Because Hiko isn't like a god tier aimer. He's a really smart player, whereas Scream is definitely just a beast of an aimer. I don't think now is the time to have a team where your strengths are in the rifles instead of the AWPs. AWPing is so powerful right now.
Yeah.
I just don't really see how this team is going to be able to stand up to.
It does feel like a very strange team because of what you said. AWPers are so powerful right now. You got to play around the ops around a Jett player or something with high mobility so that they can play those aggressive angles. You just need to be able to take advantage of them. Especially because some of these maps have such long sight lines as well. It feels like you're kind of shooting yourself in the foot if you're playing around a rifle kind of style of play. If you go over to Haven or Ascent or whatever, I don't know. It's a weird decision. Maybe they're just banking on Riot eventually nerfing ops or something. I don't know.
I don't know. I want to see what they do with Scream, because obviously he likes to play a bunch of breach, right? Like wants to set up like on defense as well. He wants to set up like early information gathering, early aggression opportunities. Like he holds A on defense on Haven. He'll push up to A long. He'll use the shockwave or whatever the breach has, and Johnny will tell me what it's called to set up these early peaks, right? But I mean, I don't know. Maybe if you don't have an AWP, your riflers just tend to push up much more on the map for info and play corners. But
yeah, I think breach could also be an amazing role for him, because I mean, one of the best ways of dislodging an AWPer from their position is to just flash him in the face and try and push up. and Scream's going to hit those shots.
I want to see the fusing of Sinatra and Scream together, just like as one. That would be
fusing.
incredible.
So you mean a breach player that takes the Omen every round? Sorry, the Odin every round. That sounds great.
Well, I mean, I would like, he hasn't played it, but I would love to see Scream just play Phoenix and just go and just press the go button like Sinatra does.
Yeah. I mean, Scream was playing a lot of Reyna before this. The last times that Fish123 played, he was always on the Reyna, but it just didn't work. Like Scream was putting up ridiculous fragging numbers, but the rest of his team just didn't have the utility to be able to do anything, and they flopped hard. I was listening to an interview this morning, a good interview from GG Recon with Yiska from the Overwatch community. He was interviewing Eccles, who is the team captain, and he was talking about kind of integrating Scream in. And Eccles didn't really want to say too much because they hadn't played in the tournament yet, so he didn't want to give away like what role Scream was playing and that kind of stuff. But he was saying that it took them a lot longer to figure out what to do with Scream than they were expecting. And this is what they've presumably settled on, is him playing Breach instead of the Reyna.
But Eccles is playing, he's opping as Omen. Yeah,
he's now there. As far as I can tell, I didn't watch this game, but I flicked through it to try and figure out who was actually AWPing for them. And it seemed like it was in Eccles' hands most of the time. And he was the guy that was trying to pick up the AWP after Artis left. I mean, to say that there's a difference, a large difference between Artis and Eccles' AWP is an unbelievable understatement. There's a gulf between them. Eccles is just capable.
I mean,
he's not even really good. He's just capable.
To put a bow on this, their next match is definitely worth watching. Fish123 and NIP, right? Two new teams that get to show their stuff. So that's like our time. It's like 8 a.m.
Well, that leads
in the morning,
us into talking about the tournaments then. So let's talk about the We Play Invitational. This is the EU tournament. Was it 50 grand total prize pool? It's kind of mental in terms of the amount of money that's actually been thrown here in the EU scene.
There's a few of these Ignition tournaments with 50k prize pools, so it's nice to see one in Europe
Not all
now.
of them, though, right?
No, that's true. I think the Nerd Street Gamers was 50k, right?
I don't know for sure. I think this might be the highest prize pool that we've seen.
I don't think so. It wasn't the one in Japan for 100k or something.
No way. There's laws in place in Japan that would prevent that. I'm pretty sure.
Let me check. NSG was. Oh no, the NSG one was 50k. The
P1 was 50k as well.
The Japan one was 50,000 yen.
No, it was 5 million yen.
500,000. No, winner take all, 500,000 yen. 500,000 yen.
There are limits in Japan, I think, in terms of prize pool that they can hand out. So 50k does not sound right to me.
It's 500,000 yen, which is about 4.5k US.
Okay, that sounds more like
winner take all prize pool.
Interesting.
And the Australian one is like 10k Australian, which is kind of mental. Like there was one of them, the August one coming up, that's 5 million yen.
I feel like we've already, to go back to this tournament, the We Play Invitational, we've already kind of feel like, I think, covered what we're really looking forward to at this event, mainly like Fish123, how they're going to be performing with their rifle compositions. G2, their sort of puggy style. Are they still going to get caught out by teams kind of adapting to the way they've been playing in terms of just this hyper-aggressive look from... what's his bloody name? That guy.
David P.
Yeah, that's the one.
Is
there any hot takes anybody wants to come out with regarding this tournament? Because
I'll give you a fairly decent hot take.
Okay.
Need More DM, which is a team that's currently Norden 1. It's a full Hungarian team, and they've so far only played against Party Pirates. But their first one was a 15-13 loss on Haven. And this team has a player called Buzzed. I have no idea how to even pronounce his name. That is really good, and I think can occasionally have. What? Sorry,
they got barcode.
You're talking like you have any idea of who these players are. I have no clue.
I'm half Hungarian, and I can tell you that the guy's name is pronounced Buzzed.
Buzzed. Yeah. Excellent. Thank you.
That's kind of pog. I mean, I love that.
I think they could upset.
There were some.
I think they could make like an upset because there's a clear top 4, right? There's like a massive difference between the top 4 teams and the bottom 4 teams because there's no Fabricant in this tournament because for some fucking reason they invited 4s instead.
You know what? I know why they did that, by the way. We'll come back to this, but that is bullshit, by the way, that Fabricant are not like invited to this tournament, especially when they're taking literal maps. I tell you why.
I don't know.
You know why? WePlay is owned by a Ukrainian holding company. Forza is like Belarusian, Ukrainian. I guarantee you there's some dodgy business going on there. And you know what? And so Latex tweeted about this.
Clutch is not financially responsible for any statements provided by Mitch.
I casted World of Tanks. I survived dealing with Belarusian influence in esports, mate. I'll be fine. Don't worry. But I can tell you that like Latex and Fabricant were, I assume they had the chance to qualify. These qualifiers were best of 1, single elimination, no seeding, ran till 4 a.m. in Europe. That, like, I mean, credit to the guys from Need More DM who actually went through that process only to get smacked this morning in their games. But Latex tweets on July the 13th, and I quote, CBA single elim BO1 qualifier with no seeding and will run till 4 a.m. Don't forget random map selection and knife rounds. So Fabricant had a chance to qualify and they just couldn't be bothered because it was so brutal to get in.
I think that's fair enough. I think that's totally fucking fair. Like, I would not want to go through that as well because then if you lose, you just look worse as well. But you have to be so consistent in these BO1 tournaments. In BO1s, dude, you have to be able to beat team after team after team after team that are playing a range of weird styles, and some might have some individual fraggers. You have one bad game, you're out. When you're actually like clearly a top 5 team in Europe.
The next,
I call that play. That's all.
The next big. Anybody else got any final hot takes they want to dish out?
Did you see that Renegades picked up a team?
Did they?
What?
Renegades picked up Big Frames today.
Big Frames? Who's on Big Frames?
Who?
I have not seen Big Frames. I have not seen them play in any tournaments. Okay.
I put it in the...
Big Frames are currently ranked number 11 in the Valor.gg ELO rankings. They went out in the quarters and made the player. Okay. All right. Well,
Big Frames.
Interesting.
Here goes Bren again.
Best of luck to them. But I'm going to talk about the PAX Arena Invitational instead. I don't know. I mean, I got nothing to add to that, to be honest.
I mean, Renegades aren't a big org, right? So they probably don't have very much money. They're just trying to get their foot in the scene. That's all.
Yeah, I think that might be the case. The PAX Arena Invitational is going on. That's 25 grand in total. It's a North American tournament that's upcoming. It's happening on the 22nd of July. So by the time you guys are watching this, it won't have actually happened yet. Unlike the WePlay event that is ongoing, and by the time this gets uploaded, we'll be midway through. This is an interesting one. They've got 8 teams, I think, that they could get. And they've got tons of teams.
No, it's 20 teams. It's 4 groups of 5.
They haven't announced the full amount of teams yet, but some notable teams that are going to be playing T1. Finally get to see T1 play, which is going to be nice. Gen G. I think, who else have they got here? A lot of odd teams.
T9,
they've got the Ninja Mix team. They've got
make no mistake. This is an influencer thing. There are going to be a bunch of influencer teams in this tournament.
Well, it says that Code 7 is invited.
They said there's 16 actual teams and 4 influencer teams, right? I think that's what they said, something like that.
Well, that's pretty cool.
Is it cool? I mean, do you want to watch your favorite influencer just get bopped by some pro team?
But maybe others want.
This is better than Fortnite, how it's only influencers, right? Like, at least this is like a middle ground.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's only 4. Like, you get 16 good teams and then you get 4.
I also don't think they could find 20 teams in NA that when you get into that last 4, realistically speaking, are they going to make a run to win it all?
No,
probably not. This if they were going to do an influencer mixed event, this is the best way to do it. At least they haven't done that team captain shit where they've made
that was dreadful.
Pick their captains, so it was just mixed teams. Like, that was just terrible. At least we actually get to watch the teams. But they haven't announced all the teams that are playing in it. I hope Immortals play. I hope Sentinels play. But yeah, T1 is the most notable one. C9 as well. And TSM are going to be playing as well. So if you get excited about your favorite streamer playing, there you go.
It'll be good to see T1 again because they didn't play in the most recent tournament, the Pulse.
That'll be interesting.
While I agree with people power ranking them at number 2, you have to always say that that's because they haven't played enough for us to see them lose to other teams as well. Like, I don't really think that T1 are head and shoulders above everyone else apart from TSM. Like, I definitely think that they could lose to some of these other teams. So I'm still looking forward to seeing them
what do you think
tested.
about that Team Ninja roster though, right? The one that has like Morgos, Lex, and Grego on there. Do you reckon they can take some games?
No. Probably not. From what we saw. We saw them play recently, right? What tournament did they play in? Was it the Cash App one or the
it was
T1?
It was the NSG one, right?
Yeah.
And they went
Team Ninja.
0-3 in their group.
The T1. Yeah, I remember though. What I remember from that event is Fion tweeting atting Ninja saying, "Oh no, it was like an article saying Ninja was a standout player." I mean, mate, the team got fucking rolled. Like, come on. I don't know. It's easy to be the standout player when you're just picking up baiting frags, being the last alive every round. Like, it's easy to be at the top of the scoreboard then anyway. I don't want to shit on Ninja
man's
too
coming
much.
for the king.
There was one clip where his team got owned on, I think it was like they were on split and it was defense. He was like in mid with a judge, like bunny hopping, killing people. He got like a 4K and everyone tweets it out. But like they got shit on in that series, utterly destroyed. But like everyone's like, "Wow, pro gamer Ninja getting rubbing shoulders with Valorant." Shut up! Shut up!
Mitch is the best.
Yeah, I think the only real take though from this is just everyone's really just waiting to see is T1 still one of the best teams, because as we said, the power rankings that's been done by Ada and Fion, they put T1 at number 2, which is okay. Maybe maybe they've been sniffing at the scrimbuck farts. I don't know. Who knows? Or maybe they're just going off previous results.
Yeah, I mean they came second in their previous tournaments. So
it's a reasonable guess, but I think that does it. Does anyone else want to add anything before we close this one up?
Oh, play of the week.
Well, we're not doing that.
Oh,
I couldn't
shamed ourselves.
I couldn't be bothered to find a good play, Johnny. So unfortunately, unless you've got a Twitch clip of you rolling kids around in Valorant, then we're not doing a play.
There's a clip of Simple playing Valorant.
Oh no! It has to be David Peace 5K on the stage.
Yeah.
Where was that? What was his 5K?
He
got the ace on
Ascent.
On the Ascent B-side, yeah.
Yeah.
I can't be bothered to find it.
Reddit, I think. I was trying to find. Yeah, someone put together like some like, I don't know, mixed clip or whatever.
It was not like spectacular because you just slowed people and then just shot bots.
But it exemplifies his kind of unique style, which was what we were talking about before. So I like it as like a prime example of like him just pushing up crazy aggressive to get info. In that case, he just ends up killing the whole enemy team, but it was pretty clean. It was clean.
Yeah. I want Valorant tournaments to not play so many boring group stage games so that I can watch and follow the scene without giving away my life.
Do you want best of ones in groups?
No.
I don't even want best of ones in general, man. Like best of ones in Valorant are actually a bit of a meme because of the shorter round. Because of the shorter round format, if you win 2 pistol rounds, I think your chances of winning the best of one just go up significantly more. Yeah. And sometimes pistol rounds I'm not going to say they're all RNG, but they are like, it's not the same as like a fully fledged rifle v rifles. You know what I mean? The stuff doesn't get played into it. Anyway, I think we're done. Are we done? Maybe.
Yeah, you want to go feed with me in ranked?